Hello, and welcome back to my channel. So in this video, I want to talk about the 11th short story in the portable Chekhov edition that I am working my way through, reading and then recording a short video about each one. So the 11th short story is called The Encounter. And in The Encounter, we are introduced to Yefrem, who is a young man who's traveling from his village to neighboring villages, collecting money to rebuild his local church that has burned down. And he has been going for quite a while at the start of the story, going from village to village, city to city, collecting money. And so at the beginning of the story, we are just given some flashbacks to his time on the road, spent gathering these funds to rebuild this church. We get some background on the church, on what happened. It was struck by lightning while the members of the church were working out in the fields. They were unable to put the flames out, and so this young man has taken it on himself. Yefrem has taken it on himself to go and raise money for rebuilding a new church. We are not given any information as to whether he is employed by the church, whether he is a member of that church's staff per se, or if he has simply taken it on his shoulders as a man of the community to rebuild this sort of center of the community, which is this church building. And so he is working his way through these villages. He gets to this one particular village where he meets a peasant. He comes into the village and he sees this peasant man sort of lounging on the ground, just sort of laying on the ground by the side of the road. And so Yefrem calls out to him. We are introduced to this peasant man. His name is Kuzma. He's a very interesting character. He is very sort of self-righteous, very sort of confident, overly confident in himself and in his abilities. Very, very much self-absorbed, and just comes off as somewhat aggressive. And so he talks to Yefrem. Of course, he asks what Yefrem's doing, where he's going, where he's coming from, all the regular questions. Yefrem tells him his story about the church burning down, gathering more money for the church, and the peasant man Kuzma sort of just goes into this sort of interrogation where he is asking Yefrem how much money he has made, how much money people donate, what he plans to do with the money. Does he keep the money? What happens if his cash box becomes full? How will he accept more money? And sort of just has this list of questions that he just seems to be firing out at Yefrem. And Yefrem sort of answers some of them and leaves some of them unanswered, and is sort of closed off because he doesn't really know this guy, and this he's being asked all of these financial questions about the end goal of what the money will be used for and all of this. And at the end of this conversation, Kuzma decides to go with Yefrem to be Yefrem's sort of travel companion per se. So they start going back out again to these different villages to make money. And one night, after having this conversation about the money being Yefrem's money and versus being God's money, and Yefrem insists that it's God's money, and Kuzma is really not understanding why Yefrem wouldn't just use the money himself. And so one morning, Yefrem wakes up, the money's gone. And so he's sort of freaking out that all of his money is gone. And he asks Kuzma, where's the money? The money's gone. And at first he sort of accuses Kuzma of stealing it. Kuzma says, he didn't take it. He doesn't know where it is. And, if it's not his money in the first place, why is he so upset about it? And Yefrem is just sort of becomes more and more distressed over the course of this day, looking for this money that he's gathered. And eventually Kuzma says, okay, I took it, here's the money back, and takes this wad of cash out, and cash and coins, and gives it to Yefrem, and basically says, I was just pulling a joke on you, and I was going to give it back. I was just having so much fun with how crazy you were getting about this money. And Yefrem just sort of loses it with Kuzma. They have a couple more sort of conversation, very, very heated, where Yefrem is just incredibly annoyed with Kuzma. Kuzma just doesn't seem to see the seriousness in anything. Yefrem is much too serious about everything. He's very, very tightly wound and very serious about everything, and everything is a very serious situation. And then Kuzma is very, very loosely wound. He's very much laid back and does not take anything seriously at all. And so, of course, neither way of those two options is good. You want to be somewhere in the middle, and so we have these two characters who are extreme polar opposites, and neither of them function very well. And so Yefrem goes on this sort of tirade telling Kuzma what he can do to repent from his sin, because God's going to punish him because he stole all this money. And Kuzma basically doesn't buy it and sort of leaves and goes into a nearby tavern. And the story ends with Yefrem hearing Kuzma in this tavern bragging and brawling with the other patrons of the tavern, and causing fights, and then threatening to call on the police to stop the rabble rousers, which would be him technically, and basically just ends with Yefrem continuing on his mission to go raise money for this church, and Kuzma continuing on his path of just sort of causing destruction and chaos. So it's a really interesting comparison between these two characters. We have the exact opposites, the much too tightly wound, the much too serious, mission driven, and then the much too loose, too carefree, too thoughtless sort of character. And so it's a very interesting juxtaposition between those two. So that was The Encounter by Anton Chekhov. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.